das Herzlichste in Ilmenau, im Humboldt-Bau, zu der ersten diesjährigen Konferenz Educamp, zu der Barcamp. Ich freue mich ganz sehr, dass Sie hier gekommen sind und dass Sie in den Räumen dieses Baus in den nächsten Tagen Ihre Ideen austauschen werden und möglicherweise neue Ideen hier geboren werden. Wir werden sehr froh. Mein Name ist Paul Klimser, ich bin Fachgebietsleiter des Fachgebiets Kommunikationswissenschaft, in dessen Namen ich die Begrüßung eben jetzt ausspreche. Ich möchte einigen aber danken, vor allem für die Vorbereitung, und das sind ja diejenigen, die die meiste Arbeit gesteckt haben, die sind Organisatoren dieser Educamp. Das ist ja wie immer Herr Büffel, Herr Bernhard und Herr Kirchner. Herzlichen Dank, aber ich möchte diesmal auch einige Namen erwähnen, die normalerweise immer im Schatten bleiben, und dieser Schatten sollte heute ein bisschen gelichtet werden. Es geht darum, dass die 2 studentische Gruppen die Vorbereitung unterstützt haben, maßgeblich, und zu einem war das die Gruppe PR Marketing mit Frau Feser-Steiner, Frau Hobein, Frau Leiter und Frau Nebel, und zu anderem war das eine Gruppe der Organisation mit Frau Bohn, Frau Breuer, Hausmann, Pfannes und Schmidt. Herzlichen Dank für die viele Arbeit, die Sie eingesteckt haben, damit wir hier entsprechend auch beraten können. Dankeschön. Zum Schluss möchte ich Sie darauf hinweisen, dass im November die Educamp in Graz stattfinden wird, und die Grazer müssen sich etwas einfallen lassen, denn Sie wissen möglicherweise nicht, dass wir einen heimlichen Patron haben, könnte man sagen, oder vielleicht mehrere. Und zwar, wir sind im Humboldt-Bau, und die Educamp letztes Jahr in Berlin fand statt an der Humboldt-Universität. Also Humboldt-Bau zunächst hier, dann Humboldt-Bau in Berlin, dann wieder, also Humboldt-Universität in Berlin, Humboldt-Bau hier. Humboldt, entweder Alexander oder Wilhelm sind die Patronen. Ja, ich bin ja sehr gespannt, was sich die Grazer einfallen lassen, um diese Tradition fortzusetzen. Somit möchte ich schließen. Vielen Dank, und ich bitte natürlich zur Diskussion.
Ich möchte gleich anschließen an die einleitenden Worte. Danke. Ich komme gerade eben, bin noch relativ verschwitzt, direkt aus Graz. Ich bin wahrscheinlich der einzige Österreicher hier, oder habe ich noch andere aus meinem Land? Nein. Gut, ich darf euch herzlich einladen im November, 1. November-Wochenende, beziehungsweise Freitag, Samstag, 6., 7. November wird zumindest für Österreich das erste Educamp und in dieser Reihe das 4. Educamp stattfinden, von allen 4 Universitäten in Graz zusammen gemeinsam organisiert. Und es würde mich freuen, wenn ich da ein paar Gesichter wieder treffen darf. Ich möchte aber nicht länger die Runde aufhalten. Ich werde noch Flyer verteilen im Zuge dieser 1, 2, 3 Tage, und ja, danke für die Aufmerksamkeit.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Steffen Büffel. Educamp is coming home. Tomorrow it's been 1 year since the first Educamp started here in Ilmenau. And when Thomas, Marcel and I came up with the idea, probably 1.5 years or almost 2 years ago, we did it because we wanted to initiate a discourse on the future of learning, the future of teaching, and because we wanted to share our passion with teaching students and see what others are doing. We wanted to connect with people. So that's what we did last year, and we were not sure if we could, drag a lot of people here to the beautiful city of Ilmenau, which didn't have sun last year and doesn't have any sun today. But still, you're all here, and this proves that Educamp really is a little success story. And it is even a bigger success story if we look at the things that happened because of Educamp. We have new communities, we have new people working together, new people connecting to each other. So we thought it's time to keep the discourse going, to invite you again to Ilmenau, and as you've already heard, to invite you to Graz and also to Hamburg. And tonight we're going to start off Educamp with a panel discussion like last year. Although a panel discussion is not really a bar camp-like format, those of you who have been here last year know how the format works. And we have, as you can see, some experts sitting on the couch, and I want to welcome you all. I'm going to introduce all of you in just a second. And tonight's panel discussion topic, if we could put it up again, is... No, that's not the one. Well, I can read it from my little card here. Pimp up your education, from standard learner to Edupunk. So a lot of buzzwords. There are more buzzwords, social software, Web 2.0, and all the things we deal with when we talk about corporate learning, learning in the classroom, Web 2.0 technologies to help students. And as you have seen in the little intro video, there are a lot of questions that can be raised and a lot of answers that we need, and we're here to find answers. Before we start, two little hints. If you want to be up on the... We have a Twitter wall. If you want to be on the Twitter wall, you need to use tags. You can use either Educamp as a tag, or you can use EC09. Also EC09 oder Educamp. Dann erscheint alles auf der Twitter-Wall, draußen im Foyer oder auch hier, as you can see on the right side. After the panel discussion, which we planned for like 1.5 hours, we're gonna go out again into the Edu Lounge. Unfortunately, Klaus Eck didn't make it to Ilmenau today, so there will be no lecture, but there's more time to connect, to have a beer and have a chit-chat. And I also want to introduce you to Graham Attwell, who is my co-host tonight on the panel. Hello, Graham.
Hi.
And he's going to he's going to explain to you how the format tonight works.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I think I've got about the easiest job going. I just have to sit here and smile. And I was talking with Thomas last night and said, what do we do? And he said, it's easy. He said, we're two good-looking guys. We'll just sit there. So that's about it. We've got plenty of people with plenty of things to say here. The format, we've told them all, is keep it short. So we've got 4 topics. If I could read them, I would. Web 2.0 in the classroom, information overload, online something and privacy, and a 4th topic. For 2 of the topics, we have 2 speakers. For 2 of the topics, we have 1 speaker. You got that? We're going to let each of them have 5 minutes. So when there's 1 speaker, there'll be 1 5-minute introduction. And when there's 2 speakers, there'll be 2 5-minute introductions, which makes 10 minutes. And then following each block, there's 10 minutes for discussion with you. And then that should take about an hour, and we still have some time for discussing all of it together at the end, and I hope we can put it all together. I think that's about it, really. Yeah, over to the speakers. Thank you.
Okay, tonight we're going to start with the first topic.
Oh, just one thing. If no one does discuss anything, I'm going to come running up there with a microphone and stick it under people's throats.
Our first topic tonight is Web 2.0 in the classroom. And we have two speakers invited for that topic. And first I want to introduce you to Cristina Costa of the University of Salford. Is that correct? Salford? Where is it in the UK? Near Manchester? So did they win last night in the soccer game? I'm not sure.
I think we lost.
They won.
City won, yeah. City won.
No, Man United won. City lost.
Okay. I'm not really much into
Okay.
sports, sorry.
Well, me neither, actually. Yeah, she's going to start off, and then we have Thomas Sporer from the University of Augsburg. So just go ahead.
Okay, I cannot see my slides, and if you just want to go through them, it's okay. Okay, thanks. Okay, so I was, can I stand up?
Yeah. Feel free.
Okay. I was asked to talk about motivation, how you motivate students to learn with web technologies. And the first question that I ask myself is, how do you motivate the teachers? Because if you're not motivating the people that are supposed to engage with our students, how can we motivate our students? And for me, I don't think this is really about technology, but rather how we engage people and how we mentor people. And it's about having passionate educators and people that are confident enough to convey their passion in a way that makes students engage. The technology comes afterwards. Is it moving? Can you move to the other one? And that's through a pedagogy that will make the difference, that the students will feel compelled to carry on engaging in those topics and to see the meaning of learning and taking ownership of that learning, of relating to that. So for me, more than technology, again, is about the educators. I'm not seeing my slide, so if you can see the one, can you move to the other one? And that will create committed students. But to commit the students to their learning, we need to have these kind of strategies, a pedagogy that they actually can relate to. And that's through collaboration. It's through making activities that are meaningful and fun, that students can come to class not thinking that they just have to do this to get their grades, but actually just something that they really enjoy and something that they will engage without even thinking, without even considering that this is like part of something that they have to do just to get to the end of their courses. And so where does the technology come here? The technology has just come to actually just to stress this need of giving students the ownership of their learning and to open up the class to a more meaningful world. Because I think for many, many years, the classroom and the teaching has always been associated with something that is not really connected to the real world. And I think what web technologies are enabling us is to kind of opening up the classroom to reality learning and to engage students in a different way that will make them feel more connected and give them some kind of freedom to continue with their learning independently of 1 hour classroom or 1 hour class. So it's about actually the motivation comes from all parties. It comes from the teachers, it comes from the students, and from the trust that they are able to build while engaging in this, let's say, this relationship, this learning relationship. And that takes commitment of everyone. And it takes more than just having an hierarchy where people sit and listen, and at the end they kind of write an essay that goes goes along the lines with what the teacher is expected, wants to read in the essays. It's about actually giving the students the freedom to think for themselves, to give them the tools and the scope to take ownership of their learning and creating meaningful knowledge for them and that they can also then apply for the society. So I think this is what I wanted to say. This is a big challenge, but I think it are the challenges that will make the difference and will make the difference inside and outside the classroom. So I think, did I?
And how are you approaching those challenges? How do you do it in your daily work?
Pardon?
How do you take those challenges and work on them, to solve it?
To take the challenges, it's what's really hard is I think there has always been good and bad teaching in the classroom, and it has not been according to the technology, but actually with the way people are confident to enable to give the students that freedom to learn. And what I try, I work with lectures and try to engage them with the technologies in a way that they don't feel replaced by the technologies, because this is something that sometimes comes across like, okay, we're going to use technology, so it means the teacher doesn't have a relevant role anymore. But actually, it has a really important role, maybe more than ever, as a guide, as a mentor, as someone that the students can relate to and they can trust and they come for help. The teacher still is the expert in the classroom, but more than the expert, is also a kind of a friend that you can trust and that will be able to guide you. And I think it's just telling them that actually this is your new role. It's not about replacing you, but it's actually about giving you a more extended role that where you are confident enough to share your knowledge with your students.
Well, Christina's been talking a lot about technology and other things that are related, and maybe Thomas, you can add your points to the discussion, because you're working at the Institute of Media and Education Technology, is that right, at the University of Augsburg? So what's your approach?
At the University of Augsburg, I do a research project where it's about integrating new technologies into the learning of students. And also I teach courses on e-learning and knowledge management, which is quite a good fit because I sort of research new ways and scenarios to make learning happening through technology. And I also can test it in my classes and feedback it into the research. So I will try to present you the views that I was building over the last couple of years. So I would like to start with that thesis of the net generation and these kinds of things. And I think that today's students are quite tech savvy. They use a lot of Web 2.0 tools. They have StudiVZ accounts, use Facebook, some of them blogs, some of them Twitter, but not all these students are information literate. You see that in the papers, that they go out there in the net, find information, and don't really know what is the quality of the thing that they have found. So this is where our role as teachers comes in. We need to teach them how to evaluate the information they find out there in the net. So another point is that students already have their Web 2.0 tools. They are registered at heaps of platforms, and we really don't need to create more tools. I mean, everything's around, but we need to understand these tools, to watch the student or to learn from the students how they actually use them, and they basically use them for leisure, but not for learning. And we need to get the students to actually use these tools for learning and to make learning fun as well. So it's kind of thing that we need to connect with with the things they already do, but we shouldn't instrumentalize them like, say, do blogging for blogging's sake, in our courses. We need to find purposes and use the tools to support that purpose for the learning goals. And then, so what I quite like is to learn from the students about new tools and then to explore their educational potential together with them in the class. Because I don't know neither. I have to find out with them as well And so finally, to be able to achieve that, we need to open up our classrooms to actually become co-learners with the students, and to, when teaching, to integrate mobile technologies, to have the students search on the web, to feed it back into the classroom and to discuss this with, and to finally discuss the things they found out there in the net. So my last thesis is that we sort of like the bottom line is that we need to constructively align the assessment with the learning goals and the teaching methods. And I wonder whether traditional assessment methods like multiple choice questionnaires and these sort of like do fit these endeavors very well, because the Web 2.0 is all about creation of content, creation of processes, new tools, and we need to sort of base the assessment on these artifacts that the students produce. So yeah, that is my point of view on the topic.
Well, thank you. What I was thinking when you were presenting your main points was, is that already Edupunk? I mean, punk is like against the establishment, it's more radical. Don't we need more radical approaches? This all sounds like very cozy, and we need to negotiate like some nice things so we can all be good together. So just to give it back to you, both of you, don't we need to be more radical?
It's not all that easy. It's pretty tough things, you know.
But why is it tough?
First of all, students have learned in school that you're the teacher and they are the students. But to actually do research and to find out, to innovate the classroom, yeah, that is what the students don't really bring to the classroom. And you sort of have to break the ice and just get into another learning mode.
Yeah, it's quite radical if you think that most of the educators, they have been educated in a very traditional way. That's the way they have learned as well. So breaking that barrier of actually I'm going to relay the control of my classroom to my students, because actually they might not know as much as I do, but they are able to get into ways, into the pathways differently, and I'm there to help them. My mission here is not to make their life miserable with exams, but it's actually giving them the tools and new approaches so that they can continue their learning even after they leave this class. And that's the biggest challenge. It's quite radical because we haven't learned this way. And the other thing is the students as well. At the beginning they don't like it because it means much more work for them. But once they engage in that, they don't want anything else, because they take ownership of their own learning. It's something that they haven't had before. They haven't had teachers that had trust them enough to give them that freedom. So there are two quite big challenges there.
This is something we could throw to the audience here. We held this online seminar as a run-up last week about Edupunk, and Martin Edner, I think it was, described how they were using Web 2 tools in university in Austria. And Stephen Downes came back and said, you're selling out. This isn't Edupunk what you're talking about. You're being brought into the establishment. He said, this is Edu New Wave, and New Wave was terrible. So I'm interested. Anyone got any views on that?
I disagree with the thesis that students and teachers don't have any experience with this type of learning and teaching. If I look at the German primary schools, these are classes 1 to 4, we have lots of experience with weekly learning plans and students that are working up to 50% of the weekly learning time self-organized, alone or in small groups. The interesting point is that in the moment when they are going to secondary school teachers don't use this experience, don't use this learning, ways of learning, and it's a very good example for unlearning. because 1 or 2 years later the students can't work in this way. And if then teachers are trying to work in groups or something like this, they say they can't do it. And they could do it, but the teachers in class 5, 6, 7 didn't use this.
No, I totally agree. I think the best example is the primary teachers. They are quite good in engaging the kids. But if you see teacher training for high school and even then now it's changing again. But the teachers that have been in the system for a while, the way they've been taught how to teach, and if you look at the learning spaces, we still sit people in rows. You know, we cannot even move them around. But the primary teachers are actually the best example for collaborative learning. But after the 4th grade, we kind of forget and we want to control the kids because they get a little bit more controllable. So yeah, I think there's a lot to change there. But I do agree with you. Yeah.
Anyone else want to come in? There's a microphone there.
I would be kind of keen to see some examples how you actually transform your ideas that you just mentioned in the classroom, because that didn't came up till yet.
Which one do you want to? You want to go first?
Okay, we do like classes or courses where all the students bring their technologies, their mobiles into the classroom, and then there is a presentation. It's just an example. There's a presentation, and that presentation is videotaped by the students and actually live broadcasted into the net, so that students that can't come to the class on that day can join virtually. But I mean, it's not only about broadcasting. The lecture is fed back onto the laptops of the students, and they actually can annotate the things that were just said in the class. But it's sort of like fixed. It's documented, and students can then start a discourse. They just add links to or definitions at Wikipedia, or look up information that maybe contradict and raise that matter in the classroom. And also after the class, students should write kind of short essays that relate to the things that were said in class, and other students reply on that. So it's kind of an interactive learning experience that starts from a presentation. So that's an example of what we have done.
I work in 2 different realities. For instance, when I worked as a teacher, I used to divide my classes into groups, and they worked on collaborative projects. And for the project to be finished, each group had to present their part of the task, so everything combined will be the project. That was one of the ways, and we use a lot of wikis and blogs and the tools that were available at the time. When I work with the lectures, we also try to because we're working with researchers, so we also try to collaborate and bring people from the outside on online conversations where they can tap into experts that they wouldn't have access to otherwise. So it really depends on the audience and how. For me, the 2 main questions is who your audience is and how you want them to learn and to engage, and from that, then how you want them to learn, and from that on, then you can develop strategies that will be meaningful for them and for what they need to learn, for what they need to accomplish. But I know that Ellen also has very interesting ideas to share.
Philip, you wanted to say something.
Actually, I have a question. Do the scenarios that you describe here still incorporate that all those students sit in the same classroom? Or do you have concepts for distance learning or distributed learning as well?
The concepts I was talking about are in a classroom setting.
Okay.
Students don't need to be in the classroom. They can follow the presentation from their homes as well. But mainly it's all about, it's not about virtual learning and face-to-face learning, but it's
Okay.
about the sort of ambient learning. You bring the technology into the classroom, use it for research and searching information and feed it back into the discourse. So when we started the project, we didn't really know how to use the tool. But during that term, we learned how to use the tool, and the students came up with the ideas for themselves, you know. They just learned how to use
I think the
the
situation
scenario.
is quite comparable to what enterprises face today. When we hire students today, they are used to entirely different ways of working together like we are known to. And now we try to cope with that and develop tools and systems to actually address this need. The reason why I asked the question before is we face a similar trend in the corporate life from a completely different background. In former times, the large companies that provided good education, like IBM obviously did, a good part was it to bring all the people from the different places together in some nice place on the globe and educate them. And at least 50% of the whole education fund was to sit there with the colleagues in one location. Now, due to cost savings and all the crisis stuff, companies tend to implement distance learning or virtual classes, and people sit there at home or in the office in front of their computer, and it's not the same learning experience anymore. And what we face is that the rate of attraction or the people that actually attend the education goes dramatically down. And I'm wondering if anybody has an idea how to overcome such a situation, because we all must provide solutions for that issue at the moment.
Anyone in the audience who had to face or deal with the same problem? How did you do it? No one? There's one.
Yes, of course, I agree with you with the crisis, with the costs, expenses, and all the things around. The solution I see in the future for this is using virtual worlds like Open Simulator to provide high immersive workspaces which come near to real-life environment learning scenarios. Of course, this is not the same, but it's better than, I say, the 2D Web 2.0 learning we know today. And as you perhaps know, IBM is one of the major leaders in using these new technologies, so they will follow their way.
Yeah, that's right. Virtual worlds and 3D, let's say, instant messaging or systems like that we currently have under research provide very good prospects. I attended a session where we did a coaching session for Brazilian managers who just got appointed to be managers in Brazil, and we tried it using an internal virtual world. And actually, my experience was that it is far away from the real life situation at this point in time. But of course, in the next years, or I'm not sure how long it will take, this will improve. Of course, yeah.
Well, maybe we can lead over to the second topic, because with all this new technology and all these new ways of connecting, even more information is coming into the classroom, into the corporate world, and into our heads finally. So this might lead to something you could call information overload, and this is our second topic tonight, and Graham is going to take over for that one.
Well, I mean, we can see the information is flowing in on information overload, yeah? And we got two speakers, and the first speaker's already asking you questions, right? We've got Professor Back from the University of St. Gallen, and then Philipp's going to speak. And there's three questions were being asked by Professor Back, which fortunately I wrote down before they disappeared. They were audiences to you, I don't know if you read them. Her first question to you was, you hear about information overload. Do you feel stressed? Yeah? And what symptoms do you have? What's your symptoms of stress? The second question is, who do you blame for information overload? An interesting one, my boss usually. And the third one is what are the problematic consequences of information overload? Now, I don't know how she wants to run this session. She's asked you some questions, but here you have Professor Back, if not in person, by the second best thing, by Skype. Over to you.
Yes, welcome everybody. I hope you can hear me. Can you confirm this briefly?
We're hearing you loudish and clear.
Okay, thank you so much. I just thought I should start with the questions before I give my introductory statement. And I think people had time already to think a little bit about it. But I can, if you like, just start with my 2 or 3 theses.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So I asked these questions because we all, I suppose, think there is an information overload and it is a problem. But my first statement is that I think it's not the information overload that's the problem, but it is us as a species. Because I think of the whole thing as living in this ecosystem of information and new communication media, and it's just up to us as a species to adapt. And it will not go away, this ecosystem with all this information. And I think, or I ask you, think a little bit about it. How can we adapt as individuals? What has to happen? And how can we adapt as groups of people or teams who work together? And I also think there is a societal or political rules that need to adapt. I brought also some answers or my suggestions. I think on an individual level, it has to do a lot with competency that needs to be developed. And in teams, there needs to be a consensus about how we act or work. For example, I made the experience when I use my mobile phone, my smartphone, I started to make notes digitally, like when I am in a group of people, I will make notes with my handy, my mobile, and people will look at me very put off because they think I'm not with them and I'm typing SMS or stuff. They just don't understand that I actually am very concentrated. So this is just one anecdote that groups also need to learn to accept new behaviors. And on a society level, I often hear how this information overload stresses us, or that people need to follow their email and SMSs all the time. But for me, it is like it was in the industrial age. In the industrial age, when they learned machines can work 24 hours round the clock, they thought people can do too. And it took a while until the unions, the trade unions, negotiated laws that said the machines can, but not the human body. And I think our knowledge society will go through the same process to understand that our brain is also a muscle that cannot work 24 hours without interruption. So, to summarize this, I think the ecosystem is there and develops, and we as a species will have to adapt.
I think we have questions. Yes, because of the technology.
Already quite enough, isn't it? But the second one, the second statement that I want to make that is related is that, or let's ask the audience, what is the cause of information overload for them personally?
Okay, anyone want to come in? Causes of information overload? Have we got a microphone somewhere? Hey. Okay, I'm just getting a microphone. Who's got ideas here? Causes of information overload? Anybody? Someone over here. Oh, I've got to run a long way. Who was it? It was Andreas taking a picture. Hey,
what I found quite ironical is that, you said we need to adapt to something that we actually created ourselves. So, of course, for me, I know what information overload means to me. I get emails, I get RSS feeds, and I feel overwhelmed because I cannot handle all that information that's coming in. But I learned that it's okay not to read all that stuff. I mean, Stephen Downes, last time he spoke at EduCamp, he said he deletes all his inboxes every day, and he's still living,
Yeah, coping strategy. So what I hear you say is it's the quantity of information, the quantity that creates the stress feeling of overload for you.
Yes, because it's hard to find the quality in the quantity, and if I had better tools to find the quality, I would be better off.
Yeah. Maybe a second statement from the audience before I give some input on that?
well, I'll make from my point of view. Oh, we've got one here. Yeah.
I think the different ways, something aside from the sheer quantity of information is also the source, or let's say the credibility of information. So the thing is that we have so many sources, quantity, credibility. So what is information worth? That I think the point here that what you mentioned, the adoption that we have to go through, refers to what in the literature is always called, or often called, information literacy, which refers to how every person actually deals with these different sources that may happen in the way that you delete all your inboxes, so you don't have the mass of information, you structure it. So what we actually would have to do is to adapt ourselves with our characters in a way that we can handle the mass, the sources, the different information that we gather day in, day out. So
Yeah.
Somehow the response.
Yeah, very good point. This literacy that you mentioned can be translated. This is about the competencies that we need as individuals to deal with this environment. And you also, another good point that I want to pick up is that you said it's not only about the quantity. And when I was looking to the right and left, I tried to find my notes on a report by my colleague Attwell. I read a report that he put out recently, and he summarized studies on information overload. They actually only focused on the topic, how can you relieve overload by structuring information as somebody who sends this information. But the studies show that there are many qualitative factors that create the overload feeling, such as the ambiguity of the information, or the complexity and the task that you have. So the mere quantity is just one aspect that creates this overload feeling for us. And from the scientific background, it's also important to know that I think of as information workers, knowledge workers, information workers, and there are three generic tasks how we process information. One is, of course, to deal with the input of information. We research it, but what we then do next, second task, is we process it with our brain and tools, and then we also produce output through combining the input. And this overload focuses mainly on the input quantity, and the other tasks sort of are neglected. Many of the tools help us in processing and also in producing output. And we look a little bit too much on this shadow side that we feel. Yeah, So somebody interested research-wise on this overload topic should have a look at this study. I think the topic is how to prepare information for overload environments. I will send a tweet later, but now I would feel cognitive overload if I type this in right now.
Okay, that's great, thanks. But do you want to hang on there, and I'm going to invite Philipp Königs for IBM to say a few words about this topic, and then we'll have a bit of general discussion.
Thank you very much. Is this on? Yeah, it's great. So, can I see my slide? Yeah, you can directly go to the next slide, please. I think when we talk about information overload, this whole topic is not that new. From what I heard, is that information overload has been discussed 200 years ago, and therefore I think the important thing is that today more and more people work with information and thus feel the presence of information overload. And what you can see here is, I think it's quite obvious, the process of processing data and information to understanding and wisdom. And this is what people, the knowledge workers that we have today in most of the companies have to perform every day. And like good old Peter Drucker here says, the task of the management is to make this processing as effective as manufacturing got improved, like Andrea Back said, in the 20th century. So the next slide brings me to my first thesis, which is quite simple. As you can see on this very simple graph, up to a certain point, more information can help you to improve your decision quality and also the speed in which you can take decisions. And from a certain point, it deteriorates, it goes down. And that's, I think, what we feel when we talk about information overload. It's simply too much. Next slide, please. Companies that try to overcome this information overload mainly aimed at organizing information and data and aimed at reducing information and data. And this is, I think, for the last 10 to 15 years, the most promising, or has been the most promising way. However, it is very difficult to code those systems, those search engines, and to make them work like a human would work. And the right picture here is from our internal search engine, which is IBM OmniFind, a very good product, but enormously expensive to configure it and to customize. And when you do a simple search like Deutsche Bahn ticket, which is a train ticket, then you get some results that actually have no reference. It's complete crap what comes back. And the solution we currently have implemented in the company is on the next slide. And this is my third thesis. You don't have to organize information and data. I think you have to provide access to those people that did the task before. And that's what we learned from the social software revolution, I say. We have a tagging system. In IBM it's called dog ear. Outside you would call it delicious. And the results that come back from the tag pages are much better than what the search engine produces. Still, search engines have their right to exist, but human beings look for information entirely different than a machine would do it. And that's, I think, the core of my thesis. Provide access to the people that have the knowledge, link them together in networks, and you will make your endeavor much more effective than relying on traditional knowledge management systems, traditional how do I store my document and retrieve it later on systems, which still have their, as I said, their ability to, or their right to exist, but being really effective is actually way beyond, and that's social software.
Andrea, I wonder what you think on that. Are we talking about a move from machine solutions to people solutions to deal with information?
Well, definitely. I think the social software says exactly this. If I look at my own personal practices, like when I post my slides, for example, on this platform SlideShare, it works like YouTube. You get immediately through the tagging, you find related publications, and it's not mostly the information that I get connected to. This information is connected to people. And the value for me is I find the people with the same interest with which I can connect or establish an information exchange relationship. And also people look at Twitter, the microblogging. The group of people I follow, they are my search engines. The filters I use, the people filters I use to find the information that is most relevant to me. So I fully agree, Google search is not the only way. But search gets social and people. It's people, not the machines, but people through the machine as an enabler.
And if I can add a comment to this, it's not just searching. We talked about the credibility of information, and Web 2.0 provides a very simple way of displaying credibility. That's a 5-star rating, which is more or less incorporated in every social software system and in every online shop meanwhile, which is simply say 5 thumbs up, it's great, and just 1 thumb or zeros is bad information. And that helps you to, in the first instance, helps you to rate the information and see if it is worth digging deeper into it. And I think many software vendors at the moment search about systems to improve that even, but for this point in time, this 5-star rating is quite sufficient, I think.
Helen.
Hi, really interesting, you two. I'm just thinking about information and communication overload, because I think that we often tend to play a sort of cat and mouse game, whether it's individually or as communities, and we sort of use a technology so much that we sort of negate its usefulness. The technology becomes too busy, so we find something else. And I think we saw that, if you think about email, that was seen as a rapid mode of communication. But then people got more and more emails, so they started using instant messaging more, maybe Skype, and email began to be seen as quite a slow form of communication, and Skype was sort of it was really quick, but then people started getting overloaded by the flashing blue boxes at the bottom of the screen saying, are you there, are you there? Similarly with blogs, what a fantastic way to communicate and learn and read information. And again, RSS, a wonderful technology to enable us to manage the flow of blog posts. And then I think it was in 2007 that Will Richardson first started complaining about blog overload and RSS overload. And now obviously we're microblogging. So it's quite interesting to see how we kind of, as a pack, sort of run after these technologies, and then we become overloaded by the amount of information, communication, and then we move on to the next thing until that gets busy. And it's quite interesting watching this cycle going sort of on and on and on. So I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are on that.
Was this a question to me?
I think it's sort of a question for you and Philip. Yeah. Which you want to go first?
Me, yeah. Okay. Well, I think, part of this rapid moving technology and technology dismiss is the desperate need for finding a way to organize the daily information. You see this blog, as you said, has been the most powerful tool to communicate with the outside world, and now the term is microblogging, so keep yourself down to 140 characters or whatever. And I think Twitter is, when you now look on Twitter, I think it has the same, in the life cycle, it's up to the highest point. You know Ashton Kutcher, this Hollywood star? He's now going for 1 million followers, which is nothing more than a marketing gag. He wants to beat, I think it's Times or CNN or whatever. So once a guy like Ashton Kutcher got 1 million followers, I think Twitter's dead, and we need to find something new. Don't know what, so go ahead and invent and innovate, and then come to IBM and sell it to them.
Andrea, you had to comment on that?
Yeah, of course. I feel like I have to give the opposite position in a certain sense. Of course, if we pick up this example of Twitter, of course, you will never be able to follow a million people, maybe 20, 100, but the scapegoat is always this quantity of information, but I think this is a scapegoat. This is not the root cause. If I go to the office in the morning and I pass by a kiosk with the newspapers, I don't feel stressed. There are maybe 100 magazines and newspapers, and I don't feel overload. I think it's we are stressed by this multi-options that are new to us. But we will learn how to handle this. The multitude of tools, we are not yet sure when we do this task and that task, what tool is the best one, how do we pick this information, and it is this complexity, this multi-optionality that stresses us, not the multitude of information.
Can I do a quick poll here, just out of curiosity? How many of you have got Twitter accounts?
How many Twitter?
We've got quite a lot of people here. How many of you have got are following more than 100 people? Okay, so we've got two. So is anyone following more than 500 people? How many are following more than 300? Me. So it seems that we got most people here following more than 100, but less than 300. So it's those people relationships I'm quite interested about, how we decide with things like Facebook and Twitter, how many people we can manage and how we can manage. Does anyone want to make a comment? Well, German is acceptable. It's a recognized language. Try it, yeah, great. Oh, one problem is that the microphone doesn't work. We got one working one there.
I think one problem is responsibility. If you have a lot of followers, you have to be nice to these followers, I think, because they have an interaction to you, person to person, and so that might stress. I think if somebody is interested in me, I have to show interest in him.
That was very good English.
That was perfect English. Andreas, you had a point to make, I think, on Twitter. Do you want to say it into the microphone? No, well, then I'll make Andreas's point then. Because what he is saying is it wasn't the amount of information which was bothering him, but it was the amount of people who were demanding a reply in a short period of time. And I certainly say that's what stresses me, actually. I can deal with thousands of emails, thousands of Twitters. What I can't deal with is people endlessly bothering me with deadlines and harassing me for those deadlines. But that's just me, perhaps that's my own management questions. I think we've got time for one last comment. Anyone else want to come in?